Bonjour, bom dia, hi everyone. My name is Jorge COHEN. I'm a producer and one of co-founders of Geração, alongside Prédit and Chiloia. Geração, Generation 80, Geração, qu'après. It's an audiovisual production company based in Angola and founded in 2010. It's a great pleasure being here with you to share a little bit of our experience doing cinema in Angola. Angolan cinema is alive, and despite being at margin of African cinema discussion, it's very diverse, vibrant, vivid, and made in various ways, which gets completely different results. I'm going to talk a little bit about our focus on the more recent productions done in the last 20 years after the ceasefire. After we stopped our civil war in 2002, it's made 20 years. And during these last 2 decades, we had from big budget productions to independent filmmaking, documentaries, films that traveled internationally. So I can see that today we have a growing cinema scene in Angola, with more and more directors, but not only directors, producers, but also renowned actors, professionals, and filmmakers. When we are talking to cinema nowadays, it's not only going to a theater and watch a 1.5-hour film. We may also be talking about TV series, shorts, experimental work, artistic work, which gets the audiovisual more interesting. I cannot define a trend yet. There is people doing independently most varied types of content. Of course, televisions are more interested on soap operas or constant production, but films are gaining a little bit space nowadays. Something that it's very interesting is that we cannot talk about cinema industry. It requires much complex infrastructure around it, not only the theaters, but also the education and everything. But we are seeing an interesting move from music video directors that are starting now doing cinema, actors from the theater that are now being cinema actors. There is a convergence of different areas into the cinema, which makes very exciting time for a filmmaker in Angola. If last decade our cultural phenomenon was like music, very related to music, like kizomba, kuduro, I do really think that in this decade the next stars will be filmmakers and film actors. Right now in Angola, we don't have a very clear financing structure. As far as I know, there is no public funding. There's not a clear public policy regarding the cinema and audiovisual production. So most of the productions that are being made, they are self-made. They are also funded by the private sector, which and really depends, and also from production houses like Geração 80. We support the films we are doing, and we are not the only ones. There are several different production companies that have a commercial side and a more artistic and cinema approach as well. So we use, by doing this commercial work, we get to have our own means of production, like equipment, cameras, lighting, sound, but also, and it's more important than the cameras, the people. We get to know the best professionals in the market. We get to know who's doing what. We are able to practice, and we are also finding talent while we are doing. Despite not being doing only cinema, I can guarantee you that we are filming almost every day. And usually also when we talk about financing the films, the first thing we think obviously is money. And I'm not saying by any means that money is not important. It's crucial to have money, at least to start a production. But if you don't have equipment, if you don't have a crew, if you don't have a location, it will be very difficult to do a production. So sometimes most of our support comes in this form, in this format, like someone that prepare the locations, or you have a lot of, or provide the equipment, the crew, or the crew with a reasonable fee, not a commercial fee. And I think we have a lot of investors. I would say, who invests in the films? The filmmakers, the actors. This is a very interesting question. When we talk about cinema tickets, I think most of the time people talk about like this format of going to a theater and paying a ticket and or going to a multiplex. I live in a city with 7 million people. It's a huge city. We can count the multiplex. We might have 5 to 6 multiplex with several theaters. Of course, it's not enough. But more important than the cinema theaters and the films itself, for me, it's an urbanism problem, a problem of how the city is structured. We don't have transports from 6 p.m. It's not very secure to go at night. So, of course, we won't have a lot of people going to the cinema. So, I don't think that the traditional cinema, the way it is, of course it's important to be there and you'll have a great experience, but it will be impossible to massify cinema within those theaters. That's why we are thinking about starting a project, Cinema para Todos, Cinema for All, where instead of moving people to the theater, we move the theater to the people. Surrounding neighborhoods with an inflatable screen, and let's just try to make our movies and other people's movies alive. Cinema only happens when it's shared. At the beginning, I started producing a little bit of everything, but my focus was always or documentaries or fiction films. I work on the business side, but also on those productions. I was line producer at Alambamento, our first short. I've produced Independência, a 6-year project documentary where we recorded and listened testimonies of people that participate in Angolan freedom fight. It was a huge project that we end up building an archive around it. Also, I've started right now, after 6 years in the past, digging into the history of the country, working with more like this identity, history, memory, collective memory. I'm more focused right now doing fiction, producing fiction films, creating stories and imagining a reality. But at the end of the day, I end up producing films that are in between fiction and documentary. Even now, and I do really think that this experience doing documentaries just also is transforming a little bit the way we approach cinema. We don't try to recreate everything from the scratch. We waste time looking for the reality, the locations, and emphasizing it. We don't have big budgets, so instead of creating from the zero, we go to a location that looks like the one we are looking for and we just stretch it. We also work with actors and own actors. So it's always this balance between fiction and reality that you may see around the movies I've been involved. Just like I told, instead of recreating from zero, we spend time searching the best location and we adjust. we adapt. Imagine we spend time there. We start being part of the neighborhood. And also for a producer in here, we need to have a very close relation with the director. We don't let him write whatever story he wants, and then we'll need to sort how we are going to do it. It's a balance between what we want and what we can do. And for instance, I can give you examples like air conditioner, Our Lady of the Chinese Shop, our last feature, the last feature we've produced from Eri. We've just done this by, we made a film like in one neighborhood. We have like the building where you have a different locations, but it's one building, a shop on the other side of the street, and the street. So we end up trying to limit the story, but without limiting the imagination and the intention. When we talk about Geração, étaient, we are not only talking about producing films, and we are talking about producing audiovisual content. Right now, films are not our most profitable segment. For that, we also work on the segments of advertising, corporate videos, audio segment. So what we are able to do is just get our own equipment, get the crew together. Right now, it's what has been the main source and main financing from the movies we are doing and the way we are doing. And like I told at the beginning, even when we are not doing films, we are filming. And when we are filming, we are mastering our skills. We are getting a better perception of the market in terms of professional, in terms of needs, and also know what is ready. And during these 10 years, the market, the equipment, everything changed dramatically. We are looking for the best film possible. The best film we can do with available resources, and also accept that it will not be perfect, and that we don't need to compare to industries that have 100 of years. And we need to believe in our stories, in their relevance and their meaning. And we'll end up seeing that doing a movie is not that complicated. It's not that nightmare that it looks when you start. So just my advice is start slowly, step by step, collectively, grab a team, be determined, and keep focused. Don't try to follow every single trend that arises. Now I'm seeing a lot of young filmmakers or even old filmmakers, let's produce content for Netflix. Guess what? In 5 years, Netflix changed its policy. Are you going to change your work? Are you going to change your methods? So try to, and believe me, Netflix doesn't know Angolan reality. They don't know it the way you do. So believe in your progress, try to check your progress, believe in your method, and believe in your people.